Hi and welcome to Wealth Sheets tutorial. In this video, I will show you how to set up and use your ultimate annual budget spreadsheet in the most efficient way. In this video, I am using Google Sheets, but the Excel version is exactly the same. First thing, we protect most of the cells where there are formulas to make sure that you don't erase any important formulas that could impact the spreadsheet. So if you see this message, it means you are not supposed to touch this specific cell, but don't worry, I will show you step by step how to prepare your spreadsheet. If by mistake you touch a cell with a formula and see this message, simply click on the X and you will be fine. Moreover, we established a color code to show you which cells can be edited and which ones cannot. Basically, you can only edit the cells that have a white background. Another small warning, please do not move a cell from one place to another. If you do move a cell, it could generate an issue by messing up the automation of the spreadsheet. The best way to avoid these errors is to copy and paste your data. The first tab of the spreadsheet is the Setup tab. As you can see on the left-hand side of the tab, you will find a ribbon with a list of all the tabs to easily navigate through them. The tabs are separated by sections for easy navigation. The first section is the setup section, where you will be able to enter all your financial information and set up the spreadsheet. This section is quite important, and you will be able to often come back to these tabs to auto-populate the other tabs of the spreadsheet. Then you will see the dashboard sections with two dashboards and the monthly calendar view. Then you have the monthly tab sections with the 12 monthly tabs of the year. Finally, the last section is there to improve your wealth, your budget, and your financials in general, with 7 really interesting tabs that we will see later on. The whole menu is clickable, so if you want to go to the generator tab, for example, you simply have to click on the generator link and the spreadsheet will automatically bring you to this tab. If you don't want to see this menu, you also have the possibility to hide it. To do so, simply click on the minus sign and the menu will be hidden. You will see this message, and it's the only time when you can click on OK. The menu is available in all the tabs of the spreadsheet. If you want to see the menu again, simply click on the plus sign, click on OK again, and as you can see, everything is back to normal. In the rest of the Setup tab, you will see 6 steps to help you start your spreadsheet and populate the information in the following tabs. Step 1. In this table, you will have to enter your currency symbol. I am in Canadian dollars, so I simply put the dollar sign. If you're in Europe, you can put the euro sign. You won't have to enter it anywhere else in this spreadsheet. Step 2, you will have to set up the starting date of the spreadsheet by typing the year and selecting a month with the drop-down menu. This spreadsheet works on a 12-month basis. Typically, the year starts in January for my budget, but you could perfectly start your budget when you purchase the spreadsheet or basically anytime over the year. Step 3, then you can enter the spenders for your budget. So if you are a couple, you could enter both your names, and if you want to include your kids, for example, you could as well. This will populate the drop-down menu in the spreadsheet and will define everything in the distribution tab. Step 4, you will have to define the calculator setup of your budget. You have the possibility between a zero-based budget, when your budget will be reset every month to zero, or a carryover budget. With the carryover option, your budget will be rolled over month. For this example, let's take the zero-based budget and we will switch the strategy later on to show you the difference between both methods. Step 5, then you will be able to enter your different income categories or income streams. In general, you will only have 1 or 2 different income categories if you are a couple, for example. Step 6, the last feature of this tab is to define your expenses categories. This spreadsheet is already separated into 5 big categories: bills, subscriptions, expenses, savings, and debts. Under each big category, you will be able to define your own subcategories. These subcategories will be used in every monthly tab of your spreadsheet. One last interesting feature of this tab. If you want to increase the amount of rows for your income, for example, you can simply click on the plus sign and more rows will appear. Now let's take a look at the bank account tab. In this tab, you will be able to track all your cash, bank account, and credit card balances. The first thing you will want to do is to enter your cash starting balance. Then you will be able to list all your accounts. Using the drop down menu, select your account type and finally enter each account's starting balance. All the gray cells are automated, so you do not need to write any information. We also added a column for adjustments if needed. If you double click on the date, you see a small calendar where you can select the date where you made the adjustment. If you are in Google Sheets, you will have this little calendar feature. However, if you are in Excel, this feature does not exist, so you will have to type in the date. You can then enter the last time you checked your accounts to keep track of them. If there is a small discrepancy between your real amount and a number you see in the current balance column. So let's take an example together and add an account name. So let's say checking account. So simply type it in, then use the drop down menu to select the type of account. In this situation, it is a checking, and then let's see the starting balance is $1,000. Then you can do the exact same thing for your credit cards, except that there is no account type. The initial balance is the balance of your credit card at the beginning of the year or when you start using your spreadsheet. If you scroll down, you will see a table where you can enter all the transfer between your accounts. Simply enter the date, the account from which you transferred money, and the account receiving the money. Then, of course, don't forget to enter the amount. This table should be used especially when you transfer money in between your accounts without affecting your budget and when you pay your credit cards. Let's take an example together. Let's select the date and we will do a money transfer in between two accounts. So let's say that we take whatever account and then send it to the new account we just created, the checking account, and let's say we add $500. If we scroll up, remember our initial balance in our new checking account was $1,000. Then as you can see in the total deposit column, we transferred $500. And in the current balance, we now have $1,500. Now let's take a look at the recurring transaction tab. This tab allows you to set up all your recurring transaction over the year, like your income, your bills, your subscription, and your debts. Typically, these types of transactions are always the same every week or every month. This way, you'll be able to enter just one row for these transaction instead of having to do so weekly, for example. Income are a little bit different compared to the other tables, but basically you simply have to select the subcategory defined in the Setup tab. In step 5, then you can define the frequency of payment and the amount. Once this is done, simply enter the date of your first payment, or in this case, your first income. You can select the first payment date when you start using the spreadsheet and then enter an end date if there is one. For the income, select the account receivable since you received the money and then the earner. Concerning the bills, subscription, and debts, the principle is quite similar, but the account is the account providence. Since this is an expense and it's not an earner, it's a spender. The additional column is the 50/30/20 column. This column allows you to attribute each expense to either a need, a want, or a saving and debts category according to the 50/30/20 rule. For more information about the 50/30/20 method, we invite you to read an article that we wrote about this specific rule. The link for this article will be in the description below. So let's take an example together and fill in a few information. So let's fill in an income. Let's select, for example, side hustle Jess. Let's say she receives an amount every month, and let's enter $500 here. And let's say her first payment will be on the 1st of August, and then there's no end date. We don't know when she will finish her side hustle. And then let's simply select an account receivable. So in this case, the earner is, of course, Jess. Now let's take an example for the subscription. Before we do so, let's have a look at the red warning here. So as you can see, there's an issue found. So it seems like the first payment date is outside of the inputted period in the setup tab. Is it? As you can see here, our setup tab, we decided that the year that we will use is 2024, starting from January. If we go back to our recurring transaction, we can see here that we have 3 dates from 2023, which is outside of the range that we decided in the setup. So if we want to remove this warning, we will have to change those dates for dates in 2024. So as you can see here, once we select the date from 2024, the red disappear. Then in the second column, the end date. The end date, as you can see here, it seems like the end date is before the first payment date. So here we have an end date in 2023 as compared to the first payment is in 2024, which doesn't make sense. So as well here, as soon as we change the date for 2024, the red warning disappear. We will have to do that for the other, for dates in red. So let's take an example together and add another subscription. So let's say we have Netflix every month at $10, and then let's enter a date in 2024, and let's say we don't have any end date yet. And then let's say this comes from our new bank account, the checking account. It's of course a want because it's not necessarily to survive. And then let's say that the spender is Jess. So that's it. Now let's take a look at the payments tab. First thing, be careful because this tab is not protected to allow you to filter it. So make sure to never erase any formulas in this tab. You have the summary of your payments sorted by date. If you have to do any modification to a payment concerning the date, the amount, the account providence, or the spender, you can simply indicate the modification in these 4 columns. If everything looks good to you, there's no need to make any further modification. Then once the payment is done, simply tick the box under the column. Paid, you also have 4 big filters here where you can select the data you want to see. So for example, if you want to see only your income payments, then simply choose income with the category filter. So once you select your data, you will want to wait a few seconds because this spreadsheet has a lot of data to sort. This tab is a little bit different in Excel since these features are not available. So there's a standard filter at the top of the table, but don't worry, you will be able to filter all your data just like in Google Sheets. Then we left you some room for notes if needed. Now let's take a look at the variable transaction tab. The variable transaction tab is a transaction tracker where you will be able to enter all your variable transactions over the year. This table is complementary to the recurring expenses tab. This tab is very intuitive. So you just have to type in the date of the transaction, the amount, and use the drop-down menu to select the subcategory previously defined in the setup tab. Then you can enter the account prevents and the account receivable. If there is one, you also have some room to enter the 50/30/20 distribution and who is the spender and earner of this transaction. You also have the space for a description if needed. Since this tab is for variable transaction, there is no checkboxes since the transactions should appear or be written here only once they are paid. Also, some rows are in red in this table. It means that this subcategory is already set up as a recurring payment. And this is a simple warning to avoid having duplicated expenses. So if you have a recurring payment, you do not have to write it again in the variable transaction tab. So let's take an example together and add a transaction. So let's simply select the date and then the amount is $500. And then we select the subcategory. In my case, it's a boat reparation. So as you can see here, the category is automated. It is an expense. Then the account prints is let's say it's from our Visa card. And as you can see here, it's an expense, so we don't have to enter any information in the account receivable. As you can see, the cell is in gray, meaning that you should not enter any information. So since this is for our boat and it's a reparation, it's a want. And let's see, the spender is John. So as you can see here, if we look at another type of transaction in income, as you can see here, our subcategory is a paycheck, which is an income. And because it's an income, the account Provenza cell is grayed and our account receivable is in white, meaning that we have to use the drop-down menu to select this account. Our 50/30/20 distribution is also in gray because an income is not an expense and it should not be in the 50/30/20 rule. And then we also have to choose a earner. Then another special case is the saving. So as you can see here, we have an example for car down payment. The category is a saving, and usually for savings, it comes from an account prevents and then goes to an account receivable. In this case, it means that I move some cash from my cash or like the cash that I have in hand to my bank savings. And since this is for a car down payment, in my case, it should be in saving and debts. So once all your data is in this table, you can simply scroll to the right and you will see a really similar table. If you do not do anything, it will display exactly the same data. But the most interesting feature is that you can filter and sort all your data using all those filters. So let's say that we want to filter by subcategory. We can do so here. So let's say we want to find our boat reparation. As you can see here over the year, all those data are for all those expenses are for the boat. Then we can also sort these data by amount or by dates, and then we can sort it by ascending or descending order. So as you can see here, since it's ascending, it's from the smallest expense to the highest expense. Then once you want to remove the filter, you can simply select a filter and click on delete on your keyboard. And as you can see, all the data is reappearing. The first tab of the dashboard section is the main dashboard of the spreadsheet. You do not need to enter any information in this tab. Everything is auto-populated. This tab is basically a summary of your yearly information. And as you can see on the top right, you have all your basic information, like how much was your annual income, your annual expense, and so on. You also have multiple comprehensive charts to help you understand your yearly financial performance. So as you can see here, we have a small calendar with your recurring payments due, as well as your recurring payments paid. You also have your annual income versus expenses, some data about your annual budget and your real expenses. If you scroll down a little bit, you have pie chart of where your money goes with all the details right below. Then you have all your details about your real budget breakdown based on your savings, needs, and wants. Then a lot of information about those needs, wants, and saving and debts, and then an household expense overview. And you will easily see here where most of your expenses go. Then if you scroll down, you will see a summary of the most important tabs in the sinking fund section. You easily see your saving goals, then your overall debt situation. You can also visualize your net worth growing over the year and see your investment forecast, and then finally see how you are doing with your no spending challenges. Now let's have a look at the annual totals tab. The annual total is basically a summary of your 12 months separated into 3 tables and charts. You do not need to enter any information in this tab. Everything is auto-populated. This tab is also a monthly summary of your income and expenses. The purpose is only to help you see your overall yearly spending in all categories. Now let's take a look at the Smart Calendar tab. In this tab, you only have to type in the year and the month, and you will see all your income bills, subscription, and debts. You could also choose the start day of the week using the drop-down menu. Except these 3 cells, the rest of the tab is automated, and when a payment is done or payday X will appear in the first column and the bill will become green and strike through. To make this X appear, you simply have to tick the bill in the payment tab. This way, you will never forget to pay a bill or a subscription. You can also easily see today's date in blue. So let's take an example together and find the life insurance for John, which is on Friday, 5th of July, 2024. So as you can see here, the life insurance of John is in orange, meaning it is a bill. And since it's a bill, it should have a payment. So let's go in the payment tab. We can scroll down or either use the filter to find our transaction. So remember, it was on July 5th. So here you go, as you can see here. So let's take an example and ticket go back to our C. And as you can see here, it became green strike through, and there's an X in front of it, meaning this transaction has been paid. So if you want to print your calendar, you can do so. The first step is to select all your data. So you can simply select all the square of the calendar. Once this is done, click on the PR printing icon. Then you will have to change the parameter to make sure that it's printing accordingly. So in the print section, select selected cell, then you can select your paper size. In my case, I will leave it as landscape for the scale. You need to click on fit page. Then you can simply click on next and print it. All these information are showed in detail in our README instruction PDF, and there's also all the details on how to print your calendar if you are using our Excel version of this budget. Now let's take a look at one of the 12 monthly tabs you have. 12 monthly tabs from January to December. You can start your budget in any month, not necessarily in January, depending on the starting date you selected in the setup tab. We'll take the month of January as an example. But the way you fill in the information and your data is the same for every month. As you can see on the left-hand side at the top of the tab, you have your summary data for the month. You can easily see your total income, total expenses amount left to spend, and amount left to budget. You do not have to enter any information in those cells. Same thing for the table in blue called budget summary. Everything is auto populated, and the only purpose is to help you understand your financial performance. And the aim for the multi-tabs is to create a budget based on your estimated income and expense, and make sure that you have enough money to pay for all these expenses. If you have money left at the end of the month, then good job. You can use it to pay your debts more quickly or put the money in your savings. But the most important thing is to keep this concept in mind. So the first thing you want to fill in to prepare your budget is the income table. In this table, the source of income is already entered based on the recurring tab. The payday column is also automated based on the recurring tab. After that, you have the expected column that is not automated at the beginning of the month or at the end of the past month. You will be able to estimate your payrolls of the month and estimate your overall revenue. Then the real amount and the deposited in columns are automated based on the recurring tab, the payment tab, and the variable tab. So as you can see here, this budget is really simple, and you basically do not have to enter any information next. You'll need to budget your expense for each of the 5 major expense categories. The categories' name are already populated based on the information entered in the Setup tab. Remember, there is a difference between your budget and the actual expenses. The budget column represents the amount you plan to spend each month, while the real column shows the real amount spent in each subcategory during the month. This amount is totally automated. If you need more rows, simply take the plus sign here and 25 rows will appear in Goal Sheet. It will be the only time you'll be authorized to click on the OK after taking the plus sign, and basically the rest of the tab is completely automated. So let's take an example together for a bill, and let's do life insurance of John. So let's say that, we budgeted $100 for his life insurance. Usually, a life insurance is a recurring expense. So let's go find this life insurance in the recurring tab. So this is a life insurance. It's usually recurring. And as you can see, the life insurance of John has a frequency of payment every month. And the amount is $125. So as you can see here, the first payment is on the 5th of January. So let's go and find this payment in the payment tab. So let's scroll down and find the first payment on the 5th of January. So as you can see here, the life insurance of John. Once this life insurance transaction is paid directly in your bank account and you paid the transaction, don't forget to take the checkbox. Now let's go back to our January monthly tab. And as you can see here, the real amount just appeared. It was 0 before. And as you can see, we budgeted $100 and the real amount is $125, meaning that we have a difference of $25 in the negative. So when you budget your transactions, you basically have to do this for the whole month. Let's scroll down and you will see 3 other sections in the first one. You will see the where does my money go? Chart and table. This section sorts all your expenses from the highest to the lowest. And the chart summarizes all this information and allows you to focus on your biggest expenses of the month. The second section is the when do I spend my money chart and table that allows you to know when you spent the most money during the month. And then the last section is the transaction filter table. Basically, all your expense transaction will appear here. This table is totally automated and all your transactions from the payment tab and the variable tab will appear. Please note that only the paid transactions are in this table. So if you forget to tick the paid column in the payment tab, the transaction will not appear. Additionally, only the transaction from January will appear in this table. Since we are in the month of January for the February tab, same thing, only the transaction from the month of February will appear, and so on. And moreover, we added the possibility to filter your transactions at the top of the table. So you can filter your transactions by date amounts, category, subcategory, and account provenance. All the transactions are already sorted by date, but you can also sort them by amount in ascending or descending order. So this filter feature works exactly the same way as the one that we saw in the variable tab. So once you've done this for the whole month, you will also know on which day of the month you spend the most money. Then if you scroll up at the top, you will see all the graphs showing your family financial performance over the month. All right, let's see how changing the calculation set up for carryover affects our number. So as you can see here in January, we have a left to budget of $18,000. Now let's have a look at our February month in the left to spend. We have $1,425. And in the left to budget, we are in the negative of $615. So now let's go to our setup tab and change our step 4 calculations. So we go from zero based budget to carryover budget, meaning that the left to budget from January will carry over to February. So as you can see here, we went from minus $615 to $17,940. Now let's take a look at the 50,320 tab. This tab is the first one of the Build Your Wealth section. As for the 50,300 dashboard tab, this tab helps you implement the 50,320 rule. As a reminder, we published a blog article on this method on our website. You can find the article linked to this info icon and also in the description if you want to learn more about general finances. But globally, the 5032 rule is a budgeting technique that involves dividing your money into 3 primary categories: 50% toward the needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% towards savings or debt payments. The first thing you will have to choose in this tab is the month you want to visualize. Then the data from the monthly tab will auto-populate the summary table to let you see all your spending categories. Just below, you will also have a summary of the transaction tracker for this specific month. Everything is auto-populated in this table. As I mentioned, you can filter all the data in this transaction tracker exactly like in the monthly tab. If some rows do not have 50, 30, 20 distribution or the wrong selection, then you can simply get back to the recurring tab payment tab or the variable tab to change it in the green table above. You can change the ratio if you think 50/30/20 does not fit your lifestyle. This rule is only a guideline. It doesn't mean you need to follow it exactly. Once this step is done, you will see your real distribution in the yellow table. The table will show you a percentage for each category, and you will be able to see if you are close to your ratio. You will also be able to visualize your data in the graphs above to help you understand your financial situation. So now let's take a look at the distribution tab. The distribution tab will help you understand who earns the most money and who spends the most and on what. In this tab, the first thing that you want to do is to choose the month you want to visualize, and then the whole spreadsheet is totally automated. If you scroll down a little bit, you will see on the left-hand side the income distribution, and on the left side the transaction tracker of the month, with the spenders on the right-hand side. If an earner or a spender is not the right one, you could simply get back to the recurring tab, the payment tab, or the V variable tab to find these transaction and change the associated person. In the global distribution table, you will see how much each family member spent in each spending category. You will see similar information in the expenses overview graph. Finally, you also have the income versus total expenses graph to see the ratio in between the family members or the couple. So now let's take a look at the sinking fund tab. This tab will help you set money aside to reach your financial goals. So all the graphs below are auto-populated and will change with the data you insert in the table on the left-hand side to set up your sinking funds. You simply have to list your goals. You can list up to 15 sinking funds in this tab. First, give your money saving goal a name, then write the amount of money needed to reach that goal, the amount you aim to put aside each month toward that specific goal, and the amount of money you already have aside for the goal. It can also be zero if you want to start a new goal from scratch. The rest of the table is auto-populated. So let's take an example together, and let's say that my next saving goal is to buy a dog. Simply type in buy a dog, for example, and then let's say my goal is to save up to $2,000. I want a big dog, and then let's say my monthly goal is $50 to put aside toward that goals. And let's say that I just received a little bit of money from my parents, so I have already $500 aside for that goal. So as you can see here, I can see that I have 25% of my goal that is already achieved and that I have about 30 months left to achieve my goal. In the contribution tracker, on the left-hand side, you have to track the amount you put aside for your goals and assign it to the specific goals. Double click on the date to pick a date from the calendar if you're on Google Sheets, and remember, if you're on Excel, this feature doesn't exist. You have to type in, so you have to type in the date, then you have to select your saving goal using the drop-down menu and enter the amount you saved. So let's say that today I want to put aside another $50 toward my buy a dog goal. So as you can see here in my summary table, I now have $550 and my percentage is now at 28%. So as you can see, the charts will also auto-populate based on these information. Now let's take a look at the debt tab. The debt tab will help you track and pay your debts in the most efficient way possible. As for the sinking fund tab, you have some graphs on the right-hand side that will auto-populate based on your information on the left-hand side. You have to choose in between the Avalanche strategy, the Snowball method, and the custom method. In the Avalanche method, you prioritize the debt based on their interest rate. You pay all the minimum payment for all your debts, but you basically allocate all extra money to the debt with the highest interest rate. The Snowball method focuses on paying debts with the lowest balance first, then progressing to the larger ones. Once a debt is paid off, the freed up money goes toward paying another debt, hence creating a snowball effect. If you want to customize which debt you want to pay first, you can choose the custom option and the debt will be treated and analyzed in the order you wrote them in the table below. You can add some extra cash you have freed up that you would like to put toward paying your debts, but this is only optional. Finally, you need to list all your debts if you choose the Avalanche or snowball strategies, you do not need to bother with the order you write them, since they will be reorganized based on your chosen strategy. If you choose the custom method, you have to write them in order you plan to pay for them. Enter the name of your debt, the initial balance, and the interest rate, and the minimum payment. So now let's enter an example together, and let's say we have a credit card, MasterCard, and then let's say that we have like $2,000 on this card, and that the interest rate is 25%, and the minimum payment is $120. So once everything is entered, the rest of the sheet will auto-populate by itself. Moreover, if you have spontaneous money that you want to put toward your debt, you can write it in the overview, plus or minus sales, or you could decrease your monthly payment if needed. So let's say in August we have $40 extra. As you can see, I can simply put it there. And let's say I have less money, I can also reduce this plus or minus column. And let's say in December, I will have gift and things. So I will have less money, let's say -$100. Finally, you will see your debt-free date for each debts, as well as the payments for each of them over time. You will also have the summary of all your debts as well as your debt-free date. Now let's take a look at the net worth tab. The net worth tab will help you visualize your financial worth over time. The first thing you want to do in this tab is to list your assets and liabilities. So as you can see here, I wrote down a few example in my cash and bank account. I have bank checking account emergency fund. You see the drill. Then I have listed a few of my investment accounts, then properties. If we scroll down a little bit, you also see all my liabilities listed. Every month you will add your assets and liabilities total, meaning that you can just check your bank account bottom line, and then you can use the bank account tab to help you as well. Once you have started to fill in some data, the sheets will automatically calculate everything for you. At the top, you will be able to see your overall net worth, your annual growth in dollar, as well as in percentage. In the charts, you will be able to see your net worth over the months and the difference between your assets and liabilities, as well as the asset distribution. Now let's take a look at the investment tab. In the investment tab, you will be able to forecast your investment and see how much money you could make in a few years. The first thing that you will want to do is to input the start date. Then select the number of years you would like to forecast your investment. Then scroll down and start listing your investment. Write the name, the initial investment amount, the estimated ROI, then the monthly investment you plan to put aside. The rest of the sheet is totally automated. So let's enter an example together. And let's say that I want to invest in a house. So simply type in house. And let's say the initial investment was $100,000 and that the annual ROI is 4%. And then in this case, we don't have any monthly investment, meaning $0. In the overview column, you will see the data for all your investments. You can see the total initial investment, then the capital generated, and the number of years you choose at the beginning. Then you have the list of all the individual investments with their performance. If you have extra money, you can also add some punctual amounts. Important note, this is not an investment tracker. This tab is just a forecast based on estimated ROI. We cannot guarantee that you will generate this money. However, it is really interesting and motivating to see how much you can make if you invest some of your money. So now let's take a look at the challenge tab. This tab aims to track how many days you did not spend money, as well as setting challenges for yourself. The first section is a no spending challenge. You simply have to enter the number of days that you do not want to spend any money, and the rest is automated, and you will be able to see the number of days without spending for each month in the chart. Then you will see 12 small calendars, so one for each month of the year. So when you see a day with a green background, then it means that you did not spend any money during that specific day, and all the data comes from the recurring tab, the payment tab, as well as the variable tab. If you scroll down, you will see the custom challenges. Simply enter the name of your challenge, the average cost of a unit, then enter your usual daily consumption, then finally enter your no spending goal for the month. Then once everything is set up, simply tick when you did not spend money on this specific item. You will see all your data summarized here and also see the money you saved by not spending on this item. You can also use the forecast feature to estimate how much money you will save over the year. So that's it. I hope this tutorials helps you easily set up your spreadsheet. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or concerns. Follow Wealth Sheets on YouTube for sneak peeks on our new templates.